Hi everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter by answering a question that you might be having, a question that I was having before I arrived in Baghdad, Iraq. Is it safe to travel here? I'm standing right outside of this mosque here, right outside of Mutabi Street, which is the big book market, and there's a lot of bazaars here. It is Saturday, so it's really lively today. It's very crowded. During the other days of the week, except for Friday and Saturday, it's pretty quiet here because that's during the week. The weekend here being Fridays and Saturdays. But I wanted to take a little bit of time and answer a question that you might be having. And honestly, I'll just start out by saying this is not some statistical analysis. This is just my impressions and what I've heard from locals of what it's like to actually travel here. And I think the best way to sum it up is that it is not dangerous, but it is risky. There are some risks in traveling here, but in terms of what those risks are, they really vary. So you can see, like, I'm just walking down the street with the camera. People are coming up and talking to me and very, very friendly. So in terms of like crime, that's pretty minimal. I mean, there are pickpockets and such, but nothing unusual that you wouldn't find in any other major city around the world or where there are crowds. And what I'm told also is that when it comes to pickpocketing and street crime, most people are not going to want to do that to foreigners because the repercussions are a lot worse, so they don't want to bring that heat on themselves. But where it does begin to differ is that there are some random attacks that have happened at a pace of about every 6 months. So about once every 6 months is what I've been told by guides and locals. Many of those are smaller attacks, targeted on the outskirts of the city and don't make international headlines. All of this is to say, parts of Baghdad you probably wouldn't be visiting as a tourist, but it's a risk nonetheless. But in terms of what you see visibly, there are a lot of checkpoints throughout the city. You do see armored Humvees, you do see tanks with police and military stationed at a lot of corners, a lot of major intersections. You do feel a very heavy police and military presence, although a lot of the military and police do look pretty bored, like they're just there to make sure that nothing happens and also as a show of security. But it's not like these guys are actively fighting all the time. A lot of them are on their phones just waiting around, so that gives you kind of a better impression, or at least of just how much they're needed. And there is some talk of changing how much police presence and how much military presence there is around the city. There is a talk also of opening up the green zone, which is the former sort of enclave when the US invasion happened. There's talk about opening that up because it just blocks off lots of the city and you have to kind of do a lot of diverting around to get around, and it extends a lot of trips, which should be like 10 minutes, into much longer trips of like 30 or 40 minutes. And one other impression is that the traffic here is just out of control. Like a 10-minute drive when it's clear could easily become an hour drive because the traffic is like just pretty much, it turns streets into a parking lot, and on the side streets it is pretty chaotic. You have cars going left, right, all over the street, and you got to just be careful when you cross the street, and a lot of the traffic signs and the traffic lights aren't obeyed, so that's just something else. It's pretty crazy to drive here, and a lot of the traffic is really wild. So I'm just going to grab my Kareem to get from the market to my hotel. I'm going to the main roundabout where all the traffic is, but to cross you definitely got to watch where you're going. You're going to run over, so because you have all that. Just a sink in the back of a taxi. So you do see a heavy police and military presence, and you're not supposed to film or photograph them directly. It can get you into some trouble, so I can't really show you a lot of that, but just know that there are checkpoints. Now, coming in from the airport, I was really surprised that there weren't more checkpoints coming in. There are only 2, and everybody seemed to recognize the driver of the transport, so they just kind of waved us through. So it wasn't like any kind of crazy, you know, security to get through the airport to get into Baghdad. I'll be curious, and I'll update this at the end of the video, what it's like to actually leave and how much security there is getting into the airport. But there is talk of reducing or removing some of those additional checks that you have to go through to get to the airport, so it's a little bit more of a normal airport experience. Here's an update on leaving Baghdad. There are multiple security points in the airport where you go through X-ray machines with your bags. You can also expect to have your bags checked by dogs prior to entering the airport, and in security, your bags will be carefully checked. If you travel with a lot of electronics, cameras, etc., just make sure that you give yourself extra time at the airport. Now, in terms of just walking around here and how I feel pretty comfortable, just aware. I'm just more aware of my surroundings a little bit more than I might be in other places, and also just more aware of the fact that those random events that can happen here a little bit more frequently than they would in a lot of other major cities around the world. But in terms of, you know, me worried that someone's gonna pick me off the street, I'm told that really the chances of that are very, very, very low. And in terms of the local population, everybody is just really friendly and nice, and it adds to the welcoming feeling. Now, people do have a tendency to stare, so they tendency to kind of lock eyes, but that's not because they're being mean or that they're just, you know, being unfriendly. That really has a lot more to do with curiosity. Like I said, there aren't a lot of travelers and a lot of foreigners, and especially when I take out the camera, that really does draw a lot of attention, so people really just are curious what I'm doing here, what I'm filming, what I'm interested in, and so on. So there's that aspect, but it's a really just, you know, I know what the perception can be before you get here, because I had that despite having traveled so much. I was kind of not worried but unsure as to what I would expect, and really it's just sort of taken me by surprise. A lot of the expectations I had it's not what I expected. It's not black or white, it's not this or that. It's really a mix of a whole bunch of different things, and I think in terms of the security situation, it's really that as well. Things are pretty stable and pretty normal at the time, and things are also, when you see all the police and the military presence, you know that things do happen here, and you know that it's not the safest city in the world, but it's also a place that I feel like people feel that things are getting better and that there's a path forward, which makes it very optimistic and just a really sort of unique place to be. Alright, so if we're going to talk more impressions, let's talk about the dust that's in the air that gets kicked up from the wind. And it's been pretty windy the couple of days that I've been here, and the sky right now is pretty blue, but it wasn't like that the first few days, and there's just this dust in the air that seems to coat everything. You sort of wipe it off your electronics and then it's back after a couple of minutes, so just something else that's very different, a lot of dust. I will say that honestly, probably the biggest safety concern you're going to have here is trying to cross the street. You've got to be really careful. The cars just kind of zip through, and you've got to really be assertive when you cross the street. You've got to know that you're going to cross, you got to know which way you're going to go, left and right, and just be aware of your surroundings. So I'd say in terms of just overall threat to your personal safety, it's probably from the cars and crossing the street. Also, the number of traffic accidents I've almost been to when I've been in a cab here is like pretty much every time I'm in a cab, one or two almost near misses. So the traffic is very chaotic, and that's something that you're going to have to be aware of. So to sum it up, is it safe? Honestly, I think that's something that you have to decide on your own. You know, everybody has a different risk tolerance. I think if you're well traveled, and I think if you've traveled to a lot of places around the world and you're a comfortable traveler, traveling outside of, let's say, you know, Western Europe or European cities or the US or North America, then I think Baghdad is pretty travelable. I mean, I think you can come here and not be worried and not be afraid, and you can do a lot of things with the understanding that there are some risks, more than you would find in other parts of the world, but nothing where I feel like you're taking an active risk of just being here. I don't feel that that's the situation. So to sum it up, at the end, is it safe to travel here? I'll go back to the beginning of the video where I can give you the best piece of advice and the best sort of thoughts on that I got from a local, which is to say, it is not dangerous, but it is risky. And whether that risk or not is below or beyond your threshold is up to you. But for me personally, having traveled as much as I have and having been here, I feel a lot more comfortable being here. I don't feel as if I'm taking an unnecessary risk, and what I'm seeing and the benefits of actually being here, there's just the openness, that feeling of being one of the first travelers and tourists here, and just the friendliness, the warm welcome, and again the food, I'm gonna put that out there. Food is really good. All of that makes it worthwhile. So I hope this answers your questions, but of course if you're thinking of coming here or you have any specific questions about traveling here in Baghdad or in Iraq and or about the safety, feel free to let me know down in the comments section. And while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps the channel out, and I'll have new videos for you every week. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.